Okay. Good morning or good evening, everyone. Good to see you. Okay, so we're gonna talk. I thought we'll do a little stuff. We'll go through the Megillah a little bit, but like more depth, like a different um explanation, a different, midrashim from now till Purim. Purim's in about a month. So first of all, I want to say is like there's so many different ways that different commentators have explained the inside story of Purim. So there might be a lot of discrepancy, like from what I'm going to say to like what you may have read somewhere else, because there's many different opinions of what actually, all these different stuff. So if I say something that doesn't say, says, oh, I heard this, I heard something contradictory, it's possible. Because I'm reading this and I've seen a lot of contradictory stuff to what I've seen before. So, it's all good.
Is it from different books that they
Yeah,
contradict each
different
other,
so
or
different
comment?
mafarshim, different commentators.
Okay.
Okay. So in general, just let you know when the story Purim took place. So as you know, the Jews entered Israel in the year of 2488 after, from creation. Right now we're in the year 5784. To give you some context. Um, the first Beis Hamikdash was constructed in the year 2928, and it was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar in the year 3336 from creation. Okay. And that's when the exile of Babylonia began. And the Jews were slowly exiled over a period of, I think, 15 years to out of Israel into Babylon. And eventually the Persian Empire took over Babylon, and then it became like the Persian, the Persian, and that's how like the Persian kings ended up taking over, like being the rulers over the land of Israel and of Babylon and of many other places. This the date that Esther actually appears before the king and says, "Hey, I'm a Jew, and this man Haman is evil. He wants to kill us." That was the year 3404. So that's not even 100 years after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, after the Jews were exiled. About 70. I'm looking at the years here. Um, yeah. So also is the Jews were promised that after 70 years, they will return to the land of Israel. They'll be able to rebuild the temple. Now, the issue is that a lot of that one of the big stories is that the different kings, like King Ahasuerus, he miscalculated when the 70 years began, and he thought like the 70 years had passed of when the Jews were promised that they'd go back in the land. And he said, hey, God forgot about them. Let's make this big party and let's do all this stuff. And they weren't like scared of Hashem, like the King Ahasuerus, the king of Persia, was not scared of Hashem at this point because he thought like the Jews lost their chance and they were like stuck forever. He just miscalculated the timings. Okay, so at this time in in Persia, or in the capital city Shushan. So I'm not going to go through all the things of the story, but we're going to talk a little today about a little bit of the background, a little bit about Mordechai, a little bit about Esther, and kind of jump into the story somewhere in the middle. So the Jews, like they had left, they left their exile. They were in exile. They're in Persia, the capital city of Shushan. They were trying to fit in. They tried to kind of assimilate to a certain extent. It says at the time of the party of Achashverosh that Mordechai was the only observant Jew in Shushan, because the other rabbis that were there, they kind of ran away and hid. They didn't want to be in, like, they didn't want to be involved in the whole story with the party. They kind of like hid. They kind of ran away. And Mordechai was the only one that stayed and stood up and said, hey, we can't do this. We're not allowed to do this. So there were very few like totally observant Jews at that time. And so it was very difficult for those people. They were trying to assimilate. They were trying to fit in. And for Mordechai to tell them, hey, you can't go to this party of King Ahasuerus, it was like, hey, if we don't, we're going to be stuck in the mud. We're going to stick out. We're not going to be, we're not going to be able to like blend in with our neighbors and stuff. They kind of felt a little funny about that. It was very hard for them to listen to Mordechai over that. So let's talk who Mordechai was, okay? Mordecai, he was from the tribe of Benjamin, from Benjamin. If you remember, we spoke about the class about Abigail. Remember David's wife, that um, a little bit about the different tribes and stuff. So Benjamin was the only tribe that kind of survived the exile, besides for the tribe of Judah, the kingly tribe. So what happened? We discussed. Oh, I know we discussed in the different class, in class of Rachel, that the ten lost tribes, or 10 tribes that like went into exile much earlier, and they were lost for all time. And the only tribes that were left was Yehuda, Benjamin, and then the people who were Kohanim or Levium, that lived, the Kohans and the Levies that lived, you know, in the kingdom of Judah, in the kingdom of Yehuda. So Mordechai was from the tribe of Benjamin. He was actually a descendant of the first king, King Saul, who was the first king of the Jews. We spoke about that in the class with Abigail a little bit. King David almost killed Mordecai's ancestor, his like great grandfather, great whatever grandfather. His name was Shimi ben Gera, because this Shimi ben Gera cursed David, and David was going to kill him to like stop it, but he saw that that Mordecai would come out after him, would be a descendant of him, and so he did not kill him.
Right.
And Mordecai was called Mordecai HaYehudi. What does Mordecai HaYehudi mean? Simple English, we call it not today, Mordecai the Jew. Yehudi means from the tribe of Yehuda, Yehuda, which translates Judah, and that's how you get the word Jew. He was not from the tribe of Judah, of Yehuda. So why was he called HaYehudi, the Jew? Because he owed his existence to the king of Yehuda. As we said, his ancestor was saved by King David. King David didn't kill him, and so he got the name Yehudi because he was alive because of the Judan. He was actually the first person to be called Jew. So that's the terminology Jew starts from that time, from him. Okay. Before, Jews were called Ivri or something like that. Okay.
Was that a good term or a bad?
Yeah, no, it's a good term.
I guess
Not like
so.
Jude, not like in a derogatory,
Yeah.
but just like we're Jewish, we're Jews. Where does that come from? That comes from the term of Yehuda and Judah, and that's also relates to Israel, the land of Israel, like the Judea and Samaria area, which people today have other names for because they want to try to attribute it to the Palestinians, ancestral slurs, which doesn't exist. So they don't even call the area today Judah and Samaria; they call it the West Bank. But the real name is Judah, because Jew. Okay, so he was taken into exile by the Babylonians. He was taken to exile. There was like different times that Jews were taken out of Israel during the exile. He was taken probably more the first with the Judean king at that time, whose name was Yechaniah, and the whole Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin was like the Jewish court at the time. So he was one of the leaders of the Jewish court. And what's interesting, and he was the one that is the hero, or the hero of the story of Purim, because he was the only one that was from the tribe of Benjamin. Benjamin, the original Benjamin was the one of the sons of Jacob, right? He was the brother of Joseph. Now, when the Joseph's brothers sold him to Egypt, he wasn't part of it. He was like too young. He was at home. He was also his full brother, not a half brother. And so because his ancestor was not part of the selling of Joseph, he had the merit to save the Jews in the story of Purim. He was Esther's cousin. Esther's father was named Avihail. Some people say, so Mordecai raised Esther. Esther was an orphan. Mordecai raised Esther. And some say that he married her. And some say that in the Megillah doesn't say that outright. So we don't know, so there are many people that say that they were married. Some people say they were not married because Achashverosh only took single woman to try out his queen. But there are many different, discussions about that, if they were married or not were married, and all the, how it fits into everything else. But either way, Mordecai raised Esther. He was like her like, so I'd say stepfather, adopted father. Mordecai was a Navi, he was a prophet. Mordecai was like his Persian name. His Jewish name was Pesachia, like the word Pesach, like Passover. This Pesach means, one of the words of Pesach means, or actually not Pesach, yeah. It means open, because he opened people's words to listen to Hashem. His name Mordecai is actually comes from this week's Parsha. They say there's a hint to the story of Purim in the Torah. How? Because in this week's Parsha, there is a type of herb or spice called Mara Dachya, like Mordechai, Mara Dachya. That's raw myrrh. Do you know what myrrh is, Sylvia? It's
I
M-Y.
hear about it, but what is it? Is it a burning something?
Yeah, it's something, it has an unpleasant smell, but if you burn it long enough, it becomes a beautiful smell. So the
Right.
kind of like it gets refined when it's like burnt or something or
Is
cooked.
it a grain or is it an
No,
oil?
I think it's like an oil eventually. It turns
Yeah.
into an oil. And why is Mordecai called this name? Because through the exile and through his hardships, he became like refined. So through the fire, through the burning, he himself became like a refined and different person, and he was able to become a leader of the people. Because by nature he wasn't particularly a charismatic leader or something like that, or he's some type of hero. He was just like a simple Jew who was a Torah scholar, and I mean he was a part of the Sanhedrin, part of the Jewish court, so he had to be very, very smart and very, very knowledgeable and very, a good person. But I don't know if he was a big shot or anything like that.
So he sort of transformed, like the
Yeah,
myrrh. It changes. It
exactly,
develops into
exactly,
something else.
exactly, and that's why his name was Mordecai. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So interesting.
Another thing about him is he was a expert at languages. He knew 70 languages because to be part of the Jewish court, you had to know 70 languages.
Where? What 70?
It says there's 70 basic languages of the world.
So
If you
many
want it, just
dialects, I guess, huh?
huh?
770.
Yeah.
So many different dialects of each language then?
I don't know. I mean, even
How many
today, if
are
you
there in the world? I don't even know. Do you know how many there are?
so today I have no clue how many there are, but there are plenty of languages. But also, it could be that today, like we've like maybe we've like kind of like combined languages into one. It's possible. I don't
There
know,
are
but
that many.
at that time, and think of all the different maybe African,
Yeah,
tribes, but each have their own language, and so they had many languages
I
then.
know there's so many
Um,
different ones. Yeah.
and so although he was a leader, he was a judge on the Jewish court, and he was a great Torah scholar. He taught young children, and we see in the story of Purim later how he like gathers the children and has them, teaches them and prays with them. Okay, so he made big waves by not going to the party and not bowing down to Haman. Those were his two big, you know, that's what got him into the news
Yeah.
eventually. Um, he worked in the king's court, so he was within the palace gates a lot. He wasn't like just some stranger or some nobody. And eventually, after the end of the story of Purim, when Haman dies or is killed, Mordecai takes his spot as prime minister. So he's a Jew who has a very high, the highest position besides for the king in the whole kingdom, prime minister. There were other rabbis, especially at the end of the story of Purim, that did not exactly agree with him. I didn't feel that he should do what he was doing. They didn't feel that there should be a book, Megillah Esther, to be written with a story. They didn't feel it was like something appropriate or like big enough to be considered part of the Tanakh. But eventually, him and Esther convinced them that no, that this is a very important piece of Jewish history because all the Jews were going to be killed, and not just a portion of Jews. So him and Esther eventually, um, convinced them that the Megillah Esther ends up being the last of the 26 books of the Tanakh.
That's what I was wondering. Is there other books for the other matriarchs, or And this,
no. Well,
okay,
things are
that
part
would,
of the Torah. Certain things are part of the Navi, like the prophets and things like that. And then there's something called the five Megillahs, the
right.
five scrolls, and this is the last of the five scrolls.
So maybe that's why the other rabbis were not happy about
They did
that.
say they thought it was a little funny, like what kind of story is this? This woman who ends up being queen with a non-Jew, and all these other things about it they didn't feel was like so right or appropriate or didn't. But what Esther and Mordecai were trying to show, and which is the main miracle of Purim, is that all the Jews of the whole entire world were slated to be killed, as opposed to just a portion over here or a portion over there. It was
Yeah,
everybody, and that's what the miracle was. Okay,
okay.
now we'll talk about Esther a little bit. Who was Esther? So her Jewish name was Hadassah, which means a myrtle. So she was beautiful. They say like myrtles are like have a green, so she had like olive. She had an olive complexion. She had a very pleasant personality. A myrtle is an evergreen; it never turns colors, it never falls off. The leaves don't fall in the in that time of year. Um, so Esther also, no matter where she was, she stayed true to her good character and her observance of mitzvahs. She stayed evergreen.
How beautiful.
Okay. She was an orphan, as we mentioned before, and she was a descendant of King Saul, King Shaul. And as we said before, Mordecai had raised her since infancy. Okay, so where did she get the name Esther from? In Hebrew, Esther means to hide. Astir means I hide. So she kind of concealed her identity when she was in the palace. She never told anyone that she was a Jew or she was, that she was the descendant of King Saul or anything like that. Um, and also in ancient Persia, Istihar meant like the star of Venus. I actually just saw some of that. Venus is like what considered like, counted as like a romantic goddess or something like that.
Yes, yes. The goddess of love,
Something like
right?
that, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Goddess of love.
or
Okay.
well, it could, yeah, Venus also, it's warmth and all the other stuff,
Yeah.
like a
So
woman. Yeah.
so East Istihar is Venus in ancient Persia. So she was always grateful to Mordecai. She never stopped being grateful to Mordecai, so much so that wherever she was, she always considered herself an orphan and that she was raised and Mordecai's cousin. She didn't like,
Did it say how she became an orphan?
her parents, I think, died when she was an infant. So I doesn't know exactly, but it
No
was during the
symptoms.
time of exile. So when the
Okay.
Jews were exiled, it wasn't a good time for them. There was war, there was, a lot of bad stuff going on.
Yeah.
There was hunger. The people who made it all out alive, it was, they were the survivors.
Okay.
Um, so she was very humble and always considering herself an orphan. She never like, oh wow, I'm queen, I made it, or I'm great. Um, a deeper explanation of why Esther was destined to be an orphan is that Haman, where does he come from? He's considered as Amalek, right? The people who hate the Jews, the nation that hates the Jews. Where does Amalek come from? They come from Esau, the brother of Yaakov. Remember we spoke about him, the bad, hairy guy, murderer, and everything.
Yes.
So what was the good quality of Esav? If anyone remembers, what was the one good quality of Esav? Is that he honored his father, right? He always made it sound like he was trying to do the right thing and everything like that. And um, so because he had this merit, it was very hard for someone else to conquer or kill out or destroy Amalek, to destroy this, um, their line. It had to be someone who honored their parents greater than Asa. Now, an orphan, they never had a parent, or they had they died young, and they mourn and cry all the time for their parent. And this is a form of kibbud av va'em, of honoring the parents. When they yearn and pine for their parent that doesn't exist anymore, they are honoring them in that way. They're remembering them.
Yeah.
So because Esther was an orphan and she pined for her parents, this she had this greater like level of honoring one's parents, and she was the one that was able to conquer Haman, who stemmed from Amalek, who stemmed from Asa. Now, Esther herself was very pious. She was very modest. She always did the right thing. She had no interest in being queen, especially of a non-Jewish, um, who knows what. You can just imagine what he was like. Not exactly a very morally an ethical person over there. She did not go willingly to Ahasuerus, but at a certain point, when they were trying to find beautiful women in the kingdom, at a certain point, it got dangerous for her just to be around, and dangerous for Mordecai to be hiding her. And she had no choice, and she knew she had to go out and show her face. And if she was taken to the king, she was taken to the king. So as soon as she was taken to the, when I say the palace or the king's, court, the
King.
people, the chief of the chief of the person who took care of the woman there, he right away saw she was special and he gave her extra care immediately. And a few things that he did for her that was special was that he gave her, um, 1 second. The cosmetics he gave her was not the same cosmetics he gave to the other girls. They were like came from the palace, and they weren't just the regular cosmetics. So I don't know. That's what's a very expensive cosmetic brand. I don't know what. Are you into that? I'm not. Okay.
Something organic. Something
Number
extra.
two. Well, then everything was fine organic. He gave her a special diet. She requested a diet to be a raw vegetarian because she wanted to keep kosher.
Yeah.
So he acquiesced to her offer and he let her request, and he gave her only the food that she wanted, so to make sure she only ate kosher. Number three is she requested 7 maids so she could tell what day Shabbos was. She would have one maid work for her each day of the week. And so she knew what day of the week it was because in Persia, in ancient times, they did not have a 7-day week. Isn't that interesting?
What did they have?
I don't know. I don't know if they just
Oh,
did not have weeks
but
or,
it states that though.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Number four, she wasn't put with all the other girls. Like the girls were all put in a place called the harem. I don't know how to pronounce it. She was put in in the palace. She was not, because they realized that she was different and special and more beautiful and more refined, and they didn't put her with all the other girls. Um, so from when she was taken and brought to the palace, she never ever revealed who she was. All 9 years that she was there, till she had to destroy Haman. So for the first 9 years of being in the palace, she never gave out her true identity. And both she and Mordecai realized that this is no ordinary thing that she was brought to the palace. They tried every way to avoid it. So they realized it must be coming from Hashem and there's something higher and some kind of purpose to her being brought there. So they knew that there was it wasn't just happenstance or luck. It was some reason Hashem wanted her specifically there. Hashgacha pratis, divine providence. All the time that she was in the palace, even before she became queen, Mordecai would hover near the palace gates, hang around to like try to find out any info on her, what's happening with her, how's it going. He was very concerned and very worried that something would happen to her, maybe because she didn't reveal who she was, or maybe because of some other reason. He was very scared that something would happen to her. He was very concerned about her, so he would hang out there a lot. Now it was okay, as I said before, he was part of the court, so he was, people knew him. He wasn't like just some stranger, some commoner going to the palace area. He was allowed to be there. But he would hang out near, I guess, where the girls, were kept, and they usually wouldn't allow men near there. Actually, the guy, Haggai, who took care of the woman that were going to go to the king, he was like, I don't know, either non-sexual or gay or something that he would have
It
no
was a
desire
Enoch.
to. Yeah. What's the translation of that?
And
Okay.
non non
Yeah.
non I don't know. Well, non an asexual
Yeah.
person.
Asexual, as I said. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
These
Um,
new terms.
okay. Obviously, all the girls that were brought there were very happy and they were so excited. Maybe they'll become queen. Maybe they'll take Vashi's place. They'll get to be with the king. Um, and they had a whole regimen of when they were brought in. They would spend 12 months in preparation, 12 months in spa treatments. So 6 months they had myrrh oil treatments, and 6 months they were done with cosmetic and perfumes. I don't know how much perfume they needed so they shouldn't stink or what, but whatever the you can imagine today what people do, right? How much time people spend in spas and taking care of themselves and everything.
How
You're
clean can she be? They
not just
scrubbed her and
clean, but
scrubbed her.
also like, making the body soft, taking away all your dark spots,
Weird.
making it smooth, all
I'll
the different stuff they
volunteer
need to
for that
do.
treatment, not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
other.
they had a 12-month treatment.
Oh,
Another thing they did was they like the people in charge, they would keep a diary of the woman, like of their cycles, because they wanted to make sure they were menstruating regularly. Because if they weren't, they say, hey, maybe something's wrong with her. Maybe she doesn't have, something, something's off with her hormones. And they wouldn't want her to meet the king. They would let her go if she didn't have a regular cycle. And that's why they kept them there for 12 months, also because they wanted to make sure that, to see how her cycle was
and just make
over
sure she
12
wasn't
months.
pregnant coming in.
Yeah. But another reason why they kept it 12 months is we want to make sure that they quarantine them. They want to make sure that no diseases, no COVID, no, just kidding. Nothing weird, no kind of strange stuff.
Interesting.
Anyway, at the end of the 12 months, they were set to spend a night with the king, and he treated them royally. He treated them, beautifully. They never, whatever. I don't know. Today I would translate it as something else, but anyway, this is what it was. But you can kind of like let your mind wander. Every night or every few nights, he had another woman that he got to spend the night with, and yeah. Okay.
His harem,
Once
huh? His
what?
harem, his harem.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, he had to have them all in cycles. If he's got 1 year for 5 girls and the other ones are coming into, how many did he have
Oh,
in
well,
the?
tons, because they were all trying out the position. So
Oh,
he would have them come for the night. When they were done, they would go from the like virgin, harem to the like concubine harem. So
yes.
once they were there for life. And if he
Oh,
decided
okay.
he wanted them again, he could, but maybe he never would. Like it was, whatever he decided, whatever he wanted. But they either way, all these women
How
I
many
want to say
children did it say
experienced
he
with,
had?
huh?
How many children did it say he had? Did it
Doesn't
say?
say. Doesn't
Never.
say.
Just curious.
But
No,
all
okay.
these women, they all became like concubines, and they all were just there.
Wow.
Um, so there was a lot of politics also. Some people thought that it wasn't right what he was doing. You're taking all the pretty girls, or why, how can you do this? So he was like really careful to treat them nice and to treat them well, because he didn't want to get any slack for it. Um, like, is he tying up all the good, beautiful women of the kingdom? Um, One interesting thing about Ahasuerus was that he only had the girls come at night. He was only intimate with them in the evening at night. This is actually one of the Jewish laws, is that, or not laws, I don't know, one of the ways of what we learn in Judaism, that one should only have intercourse at night. So he actually, kept to that, especially not during the day. That was considered like much more immoral.
Oh, okay.
When it was Esther's turn, she asked for nothing. Like, you're able to go in if you wanted to have some nice lingerie or some special, I don't know, other kind of stuff to kind of like make it more exciting, more enticing for the king. And all the girls would always, ask for different types of stuff, but she didn't want anything. She didn't want any, she wanted the least chance of him wanting her. Um, and the the head of the girls, he was worried. He said, hey, if you go in with nothing, it might be like an insult to the king. He might be upset that you're not even trying or anything. So, all the other girls wanted something to like try to make it, get, try to get the king to like want to be with them. And the opposite. She thought it was a disgust. She did not want to be with a non-Jewish king. Imagine like today, if any girl would swoon to like, be able to like, you know, spend the night with some big celebrity, whatever, I guess, whatever age appropriate person. But like, let's say, what's his name? Justin Bieber. They'd say, imagine a teenage girl wanting to, you know what I mean? So they would all be excited. But this Jewish Esther, she had no interest. She did not want to be part of it. She didn't want to have to submit herself. Her father's name was Avichail, which we could translate to mean father of valor. I mean, he had very good character. And plus, she spent her whole life with Mordecai, who raised her, was a tzaddik. So she didn't want, she had very different values, and she wanted to upkeep her values. But it was exactly this thing in Esther that draw Ahasuerus to her and draw everyone to her. She didn't want to be like everyone else. She didn't have this thing, oh, I want everything, I need everything, I need to be, she didn't care about all the latest fads or something like that. She had her own strong character and didn't care about, right, all this like wanting stuff and desires and all that, needing things. She was just different. She was happy with her lot. She was looking for more. Her personality even didn't change, even though she was in a place where she didn't want to be. She didn't become depressed or angry about it. She still was her beautiful self inside and out. Also, what's interesting is that she didn't depend on her beauty to save her, but in the end, her beauty is what saved, and her inside beauty too, saved the whole Jewish nation. Vashti, who relied on her beauty, didn't the beauty didn't even save herself. She was killed because of her beauty. Right?
Which one is that?
Vashti was the queen, the evil queen of Ahasuerus before
Yes.
Esther. So, and everyone just, usually when, even someone who's popular, people like, there's always going to be some people who don't like that person, right? Like, everyone has their own personality, and some people gravitate toward this personality, some people gravitate toward another personality. With Esther, everyone gravitated to her. Everyone liked her. She was liked by all. Even like the kingdom was made up of, right, 120 countries. And people from every nationality, since she didn't say who she was, that every nationality thought that she belonged to them because they connected with her so well. She connected with everybody that they all thought she was one of them, and they all liked her equally. So that's where we're going to end today night, and I guess we'll
Oh,
see you next Sunday. Yeah, no, well,
well, wasn't she? It didn't. She's the one that actually she set herself above, and it was like her, not her being that really laid down with the king,
So there's
right?
lots of
That's
different
what
opinions about that. Some say that it was a
alter
like
ego or
spirit
something.
that came
Yeah.
to him. Some people said every time he asked, she went. So she just went. She did what she had to do because she didn't have a choice. It was kind of like a rape in a
Yeah.
way. But the only time that she went to him, like that she was to save the Jewish people. When she went to save
Yeah,
the Jewish people, she
willingly.
actually went to him. And that kind of like, it changed the whole equation that she actually, um, agreeably went with him, but I was only to save her people. Kind of like destroyed her, but saved her people. Because
Mm.
of that, she could never live like a proper Jewish life again. She shouldn't like, live with a Jewish husband or have Jewish, children who are going to like grow up properly Jewish and everything. So she like ended herself, but she saved the Jewish people because of that. So that is what her
Maybe the
sacrifice
rabbis
is.
didn't want the story because she turned away from Judaism, but
Well, she herself kept Judaism, but like her son was growing up in a palace with all this influence. Like no matter what, he couldn't grow up as a Jew. So even though he was Jewish and he did help the Jewish people, was good to the Jewish people, he was given to certain people for education and for
what was
grooming
his
to
name?
become a king.
What was her?
His name was
Oh,
Darius
Darius.
in Hebrew.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's
Okay.
the one that let the Jewish people go back to Israel and build the
That's
temple.
right. That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, we'll see you guys Wednesday, I guess. And anytime in between. Batya,
Sorry,
good luck with everything. But all goes
Yes. Good
well.
luck.
So
Good luck.
excited.
sorry. I'm just trying to get a car. I'm just
Yeah.
calling.
Yeah.
I have to like one last time,
Yeah, I know.
but it's a good thing.
Okay.
So, yeah. Sorry. I just
Isn't
wasn't in.
there isn't there a deal or something on, not on Amazon? I don't know.
No, there's no
Amazon.
deals. I'm asking for a friend. I'm asking my
Oh.
friends to let me in. But Jody said on Tuesday she could